In the late 1970s and early 1980s, the United States was engulfed by a cocaine tsunami that reshaped cities, economies, and communities with a violent, gilded force. The common narrative paints this era in broad, distant strokes, chaotic battles between faceless cartels and law enforcement. This abstraction is comforting. It externalizes the problem. The harder truth is that this multi-billion-dollar machine required more than just foreign kingpins. It needed skilled, domestic professionals to function. At the heart of its logistical core was often someone ordinary, with an extraordinary talent and a lapse in judgment. One such man was Adler Barrowman Barry Seal. His story is not one of a crime lord, but of a master pilot, a man trained by a major airline, respected by his peers, who chose to leverage his genius for the Medellin cartel. It is a definitive American parable of skill corrupted by greed, of the illusion of control, and of how the systems of crime and government can both use and discard a single man. The making of a maverick pilot. Barry Seal was born in 1939 in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, into a solid middle-class family. His defining talent emerged early and overwhelmingly, an obsession with aviation. He earned his pilot's license at 16, demonstrating a preternatural calm and technical mastery in the cockpit. This wasn't mere aptitude, it was a form of genius. By his early 20s, that genius earned him a coveted position as one of the youngest commercial pilots for Trans World Airlines, TWA, placing him among the elite of his profession. He flew advanced aircraft, was revered for his nerves of steel, and enjoyed a comfortable, respected life. Yet the very traits that made him exceptional, a craving for challenge, a disdain for limits, left him restless. The structured routine of commercial aviation felt like a cage. He hungered for a frontier where his unparalleled skills could yield not just a salary, but a fortune, and where the risk matched his appetite for adrenaline. The gradual descent into illegality. Seal's transition was incremental, a classic case of moral drift. It did not begin with cocaine. In the 1970s, leveraging his access and skills, he first dipped into smuggling contraband like electronics and weapons. These missions were high profit, relatively low risk, and critically, served as an apprenticeship. They embedded him in a network that understood how to bypass borders, evade surveillance, and launder money. The lesson was seductive. Flying legally paid well, but flying illegally paid exponentially better. Each success normalized the risk. By the decade's end, the cocaine explosion presented a logical, if monumental, next step. Colombian cartels needed a reliable air bridge to move tonnage north. Barry Seal, with his reputation for flawless execution and audacity, was the perfect solution. His choice was calculated, not desperate. A business decision by a man whose moral compass had been recalibrated by greed and a sense of invincibility. The cartel's premier logistics specialist. Seal's entry into the orbit of the Medellin cartel, led by Pablo Escobar, transformed him from a smuggler into a key logistics executive. The cartel didn't need foot soldiers, it needed engineers of transport. Seal became their premier pilot, flying modified, radar-evading aircraft loaded with hundreds of kilograms of cocaine from Colombian jungles to staging points in Central America and the Caribbean. His compensation was commensurate with the cartel's boundless wealth. A single flight could net him $500,000 or more in cash, sometimes paid in advance. He soon amassed a personal fleet, including a massive C-123K military cargo plane, and lived an ostentatious life of mansions and luxury. The scale was industrial. At his peak, he was moving an estimated 1,000 pounds of cocaine per month into the United States through a central hub he established in the unlikely quiet town of Mena, Arkansas. This choice of hub was a stroke of arrogant brilliance, believing a rural American airport was the perfect blind spot. The illusion of control and the inevitable collapse. For years, Seal operated under a grand delusion that his intelligence and skill made him untouchable. He navigated the skies with impunity, convinced he was smarter than the law. And for a time, he was. However, operations of such scale inevitably leave trails. By the early 1980s, multiple federal agencies closed in on the Mena pipeline. In 1983, facing arrest and a potential life sentence, Seal's invincibility shattered. Confronted with the concrete reality of prison, the master of risk calculation made a fateful deal. He would become a confidential informant for the Drug Enforcement Administration (DEA) in exchange for leniency. The informant. A pawn in a larger game. This decision catapulted Seal from criminal to covert asset, placing him in a far more dangerous arena. The US government, eager to strike a geopolitical and judicial blow, used him in high-risk sting operations. In a legendary 1984 mission, SEAL fitted with hidden cameras flew to Nicaragua and photographed Pablo Escobar and other cartel members loading his plane with cocaine, providing irrefutable evidence of cartel operations. While these actions were a coup for the government, for SEAL they were a death sentence. He was now a marked man, trapped between two ruthless systems, a cartel that mercilessly punished betrayal, and a government that viewed him as a useful but ultimately expendable tool. The dangerous alliance. When government and crime intersect. While Barry Seal navigated the skies for the cartel, his true value soon attracted a different, even more powerful patron, the US government. In the murky landscape of Cold War proxy conflicts, his illicit flights through Central America became an intelligence asset. Agencies like the CIA, aware of his operations, reportedly saw an opportunity by turning a blind eye to his smuggling, or as some investigations and witnesses later suggested, by actively facilitating it. They could use his planes and routes to run weapons to Contra rebels fighting the socialist Sandinista government in Nicaragua. This created a perverse, unspoken alliance. Seal wasn't just evading the government. In a covert sense, he was working for a faction of it. This duality granted him a temporary dangerous immunity, embedding him in a web where crime and statecraft were indistinguishable. It fostered his ultimate belief that he was protected, a fatal misunderstanding that the protection was conditional, transactional, and would vanish the moment his utility ended. When systems fail, the public execution. The witness protection meant to safeguard Seal was catastrophically flawed. His identity was poorly concealed. Court documents were mishandled, leaking his status as Source CS. To the Medellin cartel, his cooperation was an existential threat, requiring a public demonstrative response. On February 19, hitmen pulled alongside Seal's white Cadillac and riddled it with automatic gunfire. He was killed instantly at age 46. The money, the planes, the powerful protectors, all of it vanished in an instant. The system he gamed had consumed him from both sides. The cold reality behind the myth. Barry Seal's story is often sensationalized as a thrilling adventure. The reality is colder and more instructive. He did not retire to enjoy his wealth. He did not outsmart anyone. The profits he accrued were always tethered to a debt of permanent, escalating risk. He was a high-value asset to both the cartel and the government, but an asset is by definition disposable. His life underscores a brutal truth. In the high-stakes worlds of illicit trafficking and government counter-operations, there are no clean exits, only varying degrees of downfall. The enduring lesson, the co-option of skill. Ultimately, Seal's significance lies in what he represents, the critical role of the ordinary professional in enabling extraordinary crime. The drug trade does not run on violence alone, it runs on logistics, finance, and expertise. It required pilots like Seal, accountants, bankers, and lawyers, skilled individuals who chose to cross a line. Seal was not a desperate man driven by poverty. He was a privileged talent seduced by the ultimate test and reward. His story is a permanent cautionary tale about how legitimate skill, when divorced from ethics, can become the most dangerous commodity of all. It warns that the bridges between the legitimate world and the illicit one are built not by monsters, but by masters of their craft who believe, just for a moment, that they can control the darkness they agree to carry. Barry Seal's journey from elite TWA pilot to a key Medellin cartel logistics chief is a true-life thriller that exposes the dark machinery of the drug trade. It reveals an uncomfortable truth. Criminal empires are not built by outsiders alone, but by co-opting skilled, ordinary professionals who choose to cross a line. His story, a stark American parable of greed and downfall, shows how quickly control can turn into vulnerability when you play a dangerous game on both sides of the law. If you found this dive into a hidden corner of history compelling, please share it to spark the conversation. Subscribe for more weekly deep dives into the most intriguing and cautionary true stories. What era or figure should we explore next? Let us know in the comments.